Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And today we're continuing with climbing the ladder of consciousness and sharing the screen. And there we are, climbing the ladder of consciousness. And we are on part 14. Which will consist of a review of some recent sessions and then the 10-minute spiritual workout for any of you who aren't familiar with it, or for those of you who are, who have children, I'd say under age 18, it's a very good practice to think about starting them on at some point. So we'll say a little bit more about that later. So it's just not for you, it's also for children under age 18. We started with our box, right? Gurudeva's concept of living in the box of Dharma. He wrote, the 4 petals of the Muladhara chakra form a square. 3-dimensionally, 2 squares put together with a space between can well be defined as a box. This box is defined as Dharma. Briefly, at this point on the path to enlightenment, we put our cumulative karmas into a box called Dharma. Once encased within Dharma, the various karmas may fight each other. As the individual progresses on the path, the box lightens and rises. The box of Dharma is the base from which the aspirant must live at this point. It's important to understand what Gurudeva means by putting our karmas in the box of Dharma. Put our cumulative karmas into a box called Dharma. It means how we respond to the experiences that come to us. We need to respond according to Dharma, which means we can't get angry with someone, we can't harm them, we can't retaliate, we can't steal from them, we can't do anything negative in response just because we don't like how they treated us. Because, of course, wisdom tells us that's how we treated somebody else in the past. And that's the only reason we have attracted that experience to us. So it's a karma, and how we respond needs to be aligned with Dharma. Simple idea. Otherwise, we're not making spiritual progress. We're just repeating the same patterns over and over again if we respond adharmically, standing still spiritually. We then looked at Gurudeva's 5 core practices, which he refers to as the Pancha Nicha karmas, and gave this overview of them. We could say that they are an amalgam of all the counsel of the Vedas and Agamas to guide daily and yearly religious life. These 5 obligatory religious practices are simple and applicable for all. Study them and put them into practice in your life. So, of course, Upasana, worship, Utsava, holy days, Tirtha Yatra, pilgrimage, Dharma, virtuous living, and Samskaras, sacraments. We then added these 4 additional practices to our box of discipline that we live within now consisted of 5 practices instead of just 1. The point was made that strictly following these 5 traditional observances helps us advance day by day in our climb up the ladder of consciousness much faster than just the single practice of Dharma. We then introduced the idea of a daily vigil. And then the summary stated that what we are doing is replacing the Pancha Nicha karma of Upasana, daily worship, with a daily vigil that has more practices and is done with greater consistency than just the simple practice of daily worship. And the result is also that we now move up the ladder of consciousness even faster than just with the Pancha Nitya Karmas. With that review in mind, we're ready to move on to 10-minute spiritual workout. Pub Desk from 2014. Oh, this comes from a story. As many of you know, publishers' desks quite often are based upon people I'm interacting with. So the whole spirit of Hinduism today is it's describing what's going on in the present and not in the past. And particularly I tend to write about a topic if it happens a number of different times. So this one is based upon working with a group of Hindu university students in and around Texas. Their biggest group was in University of Texas, Austin branch, but they had smaller groups at the other university branches as well. So I worked with them for a number of years and came to the conclusion that they weren't practicing. And that Hinduism has come from India, Sri Lanka, and other places to the US, and a lot of it is doing really well, such as big festivals, some beautiful temples. But the idea of daily practice somehow didn't make the journey. It wasn't packed, so to speak. So lots of Hindus who come to the US don't have a daily practice, and their children definitely don't. Nowadays, the idea of performing a daily physical workout is widespread. Nearly everyone appreciates the need to stay fit and healthy for a productive, contented life. 3 types of exercise are recommended: endurance, flexibility, and strength. Each has specific benefits. Endurance activities such as walking, running, and swimming increase vitality and keep the heart, lungs, and circulatory system healthy. Flexibility activities such as Hatha Yoga, Tai Chi, and dancing keep the muscles relaxed and the joints mobile. Strength activities such as calisthenics, weight resistance exercises, and climbing stairs, which is really hard, build muscle tissue and keep the skeletal system strong. Tell you a funny story on that. When Shambhaganath Swami and I travel, sometimes you have these, in airports, have these long staircases, and on the side there's one or more escalators. So a few people walk up the stairs, but most people take the escalator. So I mentioned once to a satsang group that a number of people were walking up the stairs, but Shambhaganath Swami and I were definitely the oldest by far. So it's a good exercise to take the stairs when you have an escalator option that you don't really need. Taking care of your physical body is essential. But for optimum performance in life, all dimensions of our being need attention: physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. Each is important and deserves its share of attention. Of the 3, the spiritual or superconscious dimension is typically the most neglected, even though it is the core of our being, our real identity. That's why it's smallest of the 3 photos. Gets the least attention. Gurudeva wrote, "We have to adjust our subconscious to the idea that we are a superconscious being, rather than an instinctive being or an intellectual being driven by the impulses of the 5 senses. Awareness is the core of us. We maintain physical health through exercises. We nourish our intellectual nature through learning new things all through life, expanding and strengthening our mental activities and abilities. Emotional nature is sustained by tending closely to interpersonal relations, practicing surrender and acceptance, by striving to build good character qualities, serving others, and living a balanced life. We give time to our spiritual nature by performing daily religious activities. I like to call this a spiritual workout. During this time, we are reminded that life's inner purpose is to make spiritual progress, moving forward to the ultimate goal of experiencing God, self-realization, and subsequently moksha, liberation from the cycle of rebirth. It is not so much a matter of exercising our spiritual nature as it is taking time to experience it. Tirumandaram by Siddharth Tirumular shares, step by step, practice withdrawal of the mind and look inward. One by one, you will witness the myriad good things within. Now and here below, you may meet the Lord for whom the ancient Veda still searches everywhere. Generally, we are so wrapped up in our outer nature that we are hardly aware of our true glorious inner reality. This can go on life after life, as it does for many people, who only begin to think of greater realities when nearing the point of death. I think that's the Chicago Board of Trade there. Very busy worldly place. The benefit of such times of quiet retreat from life's hustle and bustle are underrated and overlooked, as life in the 21st century becomes more and more hectic and externally demanding. Many Orthodox families live in India still manage to reserve time for their spiritual being by performing an early morning puja in their home shrine, followed by repetition of a mantra while counting on japa beads. The predominant trend in India and other countries, however, is that fewer and fewer families follow such disciplines. Sitting with me, so many say the same thing. We just can't seem to find the time for puja, japa, or meditation. Time devoted to employment, transportation, eating, entertainment, physical exercise, and spending time with family and friends takes up the whole day. The traditional 1-hour daily religious workout is proving to be too long, and because the benefits are not well understood, it is commonly skipped together. Commonly skipped altogether. Gurudeva spoke of those benefits. As a result of your daily religious practices, you will be able to brave the forces of the external world without being disturbed by them, and fulfill your dharma in whatever walk of life you have chosen. Because your daily sadhana has regulated your nerve system, the quality of your work in the world will improve, and your mood in performing it will be confident and serene. So what's the solution? I focus primarily on the youth, for their patterns are not too rigid to change. I devised a 10-minute program consisting of 4 activities that can be performed whenever time is available. Hopefully the brevity and flexibility of the time of day, along with a clear sense of the spiritual benefits, will motivate students to adopt this workout, or equally as good, customize a routine of their own. In other words, you don't have to do exactly this, but it can give you some good ideas as to what type of activities to include if you want to develop your own routine. I suggest this practice be taken up around age 15 and maintained throughout high school and university. After schooling, it is hoped that those serious about their spiritual life will increase their workout to half an hour. In other words, if you take it up at age 15, say so age 15, 16, 17, it's at least 3 years before you go to university, and you have time to establish a habit pattern. You can't go to university and try to take up a spiritual practice. It's not already a habit. It's too demanding a time, too many variables from each day to each day as to your schedule. So it needs to be a habit, roughly around age 50. It's not precise. It depends on the maturity and interest of the person. But if you start too young, they'll drop it. And then you'll have trouble starting it again at an older age. For describing the details of the spiritual workout, I wanted to share a story about where the idea of a 10-minute workout came from. So this is the university group, a little more detail. It's a Hindu Students Association, not to be confused with the Hindu Students Council. Hindu Students Council is primarily in the Northeast. Hindu Students Council is primarily in Texas and adjacent states. Biggest at University of Texas, Austin. They have an annual weekend retreat, which over 100 students attend. These annual events provided me an opportunity to get to know them over a period of years. What surprised me was when I discovered that roughly 90% of the students had no daily Hindu practice at all. The traditional practices such as Sandhya Vandana, or chanting Gayatri mantra or another mantra or a short puja had not been begun at the traditional time of the teen years. These students were interested enough in Hinduism to devote a weekend to learning more about it, but still had no daily practice. My conclusion was there needs to be more emphasis given to the parents on the importance of their children taking up a traditional daily practice during the teenage years. In other words, during the first 18 years of life, if you want a child to learn something about Hinduism, the best way to do it is have their parents teach it to them. Only when they get over 18 are they really independent. Turning to the details, 4 activities: worship, introspection, affirmation, and study. The worship portion involves repeating a mantra to a chosen deity or reciting 9 or more names of the deity, offering grains of rice to a murti or picture with each repetition or name. For example, if worshipping Lord Ganesha, one might intone the mantra, Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, or another of your choice or lineage. Alternatively, a short bhajan can be sung while looking at the deity's picture or murti. So that's worship. Devote 2 minutes to this simple expression of reverence and gratitude. The introspection portion consists of chanting the mantra Om 9 times with eyes closed. For Om Japa to be effective, the mantra must be pronounced correctly. The first syllable is A, pronounced as the English word ah, but prolonged. Ah. Second syllable is oo, as in roof, pronounced oo, but prolonged. Ooh. The third syllable is pronounced but with the front teeth gently touching and the sound prolonged. Each repetition is sounded for about 7 seconds, with 2 seconds on ah, 2 seconds on ooh, and 3 seconds on with a silence of about 2 seconds before the next repetition. 3 syllables are run together. So that's how I chant it at the end, and we can just wait till the end to listen. So I do it in that count. 2, 2, 3, 2. On the first syllable, ah, we feel the solar plexus and the chest vibrating. Second syllable, ooh, the throat vibrates. And the third syllable, vibrates the top of the head. And we have 2 seconds of silence. Devote 2 minutes to this. Affirmations are statements repeated to oneself to place specific impressions in our subconscious mind to produce positive results in the future. So we know that. This portion of the workout consists of repeating 9 times the affirmation, I'm all right now. 2 other affirmations that can be used are, all my needs will always be met, And I can, I will, I am able to accomplish what I plan. I wondered how that was going to fit. Replace the one before it. Threefold key to effectively utilizing affirmations is: 1, keep the mind focused on the meaning of what you were saying, which means think. 2, hold in your mind a visualization that shows the result you want to achieve. And 3, feel in the present how you will feel later when you have achieved what the affirmation describes. Devote 1 minute to this. Study portion consists of reading a sacred Hindu text that provides you new knowledge and insight. It is important to choose a work that you find clear and inspiring, avoiding those that seem obscure or technical. Devote 5 minutes to this. We have developed a free mobile app to guide you through these 4 practices. It is entitled Spiritual Workout and is available in iOS and Android versions at the Apple App Store and Google Play, respectively. So that's particularly for younger people. I'll tell you a story about Malaysia Hindu Sangam. When we're in Malaysia, at least once a year, we like to meet with the president and Dr. Sean, and so we set up a meeting and we went into their new headquarters. We hadn't been there in a number of years. And it turned out it was the day that their entire board of directors and the regional representatives from each of their centers was having a meeting. So I'm sure he did that on purpose, but didn't tell me. So there we are, sitting at the table with all the heads of the Malaysia Hindu Sangam, and asked for some advice. And I asked, how many, if you have a smartphone, raise your hand. So everyone in the room, except one person, raised his or her hand. One person was a teenager who was still too young to have one, according to her parent. Otherwise, she would have had one too. So that showed how widespread smartphones are, that everybody would have had one in at least a couple of years when they got older. So I said, in presenting Hinduism, if it doesn't exist on the smartphone, it doesn't exist to a younger group. In other words, so much of what is taken in by those under a certain age is limited to what's on the smartphone, and it's really an important tool. So that's one reason we put this on the smartphone. It can guide you along through the whole 10-minute workout, or through portions of it. You can listen to it while you're traveling, listen to the mantras, different things. So it's a really helpful tool, I think, for anyone under a certain age. And it's quite popular. Thousands of people have downloaded it. It's called Spiritual Workout. It's not called a 10-minute spiritual workout. It's called Spiritual Workout. It's both on Apple and Google for free. What are the benefits of these 4 religious practices? So this is important. Hinduism quite often gets presented to younger people as a set of rules instead of a set of tools. We have to be vegetarian. Why? Because our family's always been vegetarian. We have to go to the temple once a week. Why? Because everybody goes to the temple once a week. It's a set of rules. It's not a set of tools to help you live a happier, more successful life. So for a rule to become a tool, we need to describe the benefit of the practice. So that's why the benefit is here. The benefit of the worship portion is that it increases our devotion to the deity, enhancing our relationship with him or her. It is a natural first step toward eventually performing a full rite of worship, Atmarta Puja. The introspective practice of chanting Om produces a calming effect on the mind and raises our energies into the more spiritual part of the mind, moving you into the higher chakras, our intuitive nature. Provides a natural first step toward the deeper practices of meditation such as regulating our breath, pranayama, withdrawing energy from the senses, pratyahara, focusing the thought process, dharana, leading to experiences of our inner soul nature, jhana and samadhi. Repeating an affirmation each day helps us become more positive and self-confident, very important quality, making us more successful in everything we do. Affirmations are also a great antidote to worry. So instead of worrying about the future, create a positive affirmation about the future. Much better practice. Study of sacred texts increases our knowledge of our faith and catalyzes insights into Hindu philosophy and practices. So catalyzes our inner knowledge, ideally. So of course, the amount of practice relates to the amount of spiritual advancement we're able to make. I won't read that. Done that one quite a few times. And we get Patanjali. For those who have strong devotions, samadhi is near. Whether one's practice is mild, medium, or intense also makes a difference. In other words, it's not just the time we put in, but it's how much effort we put into that time. If we're letting our mind wander a lot, a little, or not at all, it makes a difference in how much progress the practice is causing to happen. And samadhi may also come through devotion to Ishvara, which of course means grace of the deity or grace of the Guru, helps as well as our own personal effort. That's a good description of the path of Saiva Siddhanta. It's not just self-effort, and it's just not grace of the deity. It's a combination of both. And that's monistic theism. In conclusion, these four practices of worship, introspection, affirmation, and study, provide a simple, balanced approach to a consistent daily practice. We hope you give it a try. That's the end of the pub desk. So as I mentioned, it's for older teens and those who haven't started a longer vigil. Perfect way to start. If you start with too big a commitment, you won't be able to sustain it. But 10 minutes, any time of day, something you can fit in. Oh, second topic, concept of a 1 hour vigil. Big jump from 10 minutes to 1 hour. Gurudeva set up requirement for his formal shishya of a 1 hour vigil. He wrote a description in the Nandinada Sutras, verses 21 and 22. So if anyone doesn't know, that's the front of our Kadavul temple. That's our big Nandi up there. So he's representing the Nandinada Sutras. Worshippers of Shiva perform a 1 hour daily vigil, ideally before sunrise, in a clean, quiet place after bathing and donning fresh clothing and holy ash. This vigil is optional on weekends and when traveling or ill. Worshippers of Shiva during their daily sadhana vigil conduct or attend puja, chant the Guru mantra and 108 repetitions of their mantra, study scriptures, and perform hatha yoga, concentration, and meditation. So a lot of the same ideas as in the 10-minute vigil, but just longer versions. Okay, so of course an hour-day vigil is definitely an excellent way to accelerate our climb up the ladder of consciousness, much faster than just 10 minutes. So again, that's just required for formal shishya. We're not suggesting that everyone try and do a 1 hour vigil. You kind of have to work up to it gradually, but it is a good ideal if it is all realistic in your daily routine. For some individuals, they're just so busy these days with work, family duties, it's not really realistic, so you don't want to frustrate yourself. So this next one is performing a vigil during the sannyasa ashrama. It's a review of the ashramas for those who aren't totally familiar with the term. Of course, the most common use is a physical place. Ramana Maharishi's ashramam in Tamil. So ashram means a place where you do sadhana, but it's also used to mean resting place or place. So there's 4 resting places in our age pattern. That's the idea. We sit there for a while, then we move on to the next one. Gurudeva defined them as 24-year periods, equally applying to men and women. Brahmacharya being the first 24 years of life. Grahasta, extending from age 24 to 48. Vanaprastha, from age 48 to 72. And sannyasa from age 72 onward. So of course sannyasa doesn't start at exactly age 72. You also need to not be working to earn money. Some people work just for the fun of it. They're self-employed, they go in for a few hours a day, and everyone in the office is their friend, but they're not putting in the full long work day they used to. So that's okay. But if you're working the full work day and you're doing it to make money, then no matter how old you are, you're not in the sannyasa ashrama. The other interesting point is brahmacharya is the first 24 years of life. In other words, Hinduism considers someone an adult beginning at age 24, whereas secular law tends to make it 21 or even 18, depending on the specific aspect of life. But I thought it was interesting when I found out that it's only at age 24 that the frontal cortex is fully developed. Even at age 21, it's not. And until the frontal cortex is fully developed, you're prone to take excessive risks, drive too fast, etc. It's only after age 24 that that tendency is not there anymore. So it does, each of these ages may have some physical corresponding change in the body. Be interesting to study that out. Parameters of the sannyasa ashrama have also widened. Sannyasi or sannyasins are wanderers. A small percentage of modern Hindus follow the model of taking up sannyasa after retirement, renouncing the world and wandering among the thousands of itinerant sadhus of India, many of whom took up the mendicant path in their 20s and 30s. So you just go to Rishikesh, Haridwar, and you still see that in abundance. This pattern of elders taking up sannyasa is okay for single people, widows and widowers, and it still works in parts of India where society honors and cares for such holy men and women. But in most areas of the world, it is neither accepted nor understood. So imagine trying to live in a park in Singapore. How long would you survive there before you got arrested? Not a society that's set up for someone at age 72 to simply wander and be supported by different feeding ashrams, or ashrams where you can sleep. Number of Hindus turning age 72 have asked me what they should do differently in the years ahead. The recommendation I give, of course, assumes they are no longer working, which I made that point already. My advice is to simply intensify whatever religious practices they are already observing. If you perform a daily puja for 30 minutes, increase it to an hour. If you meditate daily for a half an hour, increase it to an hour. If you go on pilgrimage for 2 weeks once a year, increase it to a month. Once these changes have become a firm habit, one would naturally be inclined to devote even more time to religious practices. After age 72, as the physical forces wane, is the time to turn within and withdraw from worldly involvement. I know some individuals who are waiting till they take sannyas to start religious practices. Bad idea. It's very hard to start new habits at age 72. And we need to already be doing whatever we want to do at age 72 earlier in life, but just not putting in as much time at it. So if we want to be doing puja for an hour a day, then we should at least be doing it for 15 minutes, half an hour a day for many, many years before age 72. Then we'll be able to increase the time because we are all creatures of habit. Gurudeva gave this helpful description of the third and fourth ashramas for modern times. It is during the latter stages of life that family devotees have the opportunity to intensify their sadhana and give back to society of their experience, their knowledge, and their wisdom gained through the first two ashramas. The Vanaprastha ashram, age 48 to 72, is a very important stage of life because that is the time when you can inspire excellence in the brahmacharya students and in the families to see that their life goes as it should. Later, the sannyasa ashrama beginning at 72 is the time to enjoy and deepen whatever realizations you have had along the way. Very good. Oh.